Hey guys, this week, so what we're going to do is keep working on our motor control program here. We're just going to do a quick change so that to make our robot much easier to program. And so some of you guys may have seen this before, and some of you guys, this may be new to you. But we're going to add something called functions or subroutines. So I'm going to go ahead and just write some notes on our code here. This is from last time. I'm going to get rid of this. So the keywords for today are function slash subroutine. Now what are these things? A function or a subroutine is basically a set of instructions. What is a set? A set is also a group, is also a list. All the same thing. A set, a group, a list. So it's a bunch of instructions and that live inside a function or a subroutine. Okay? Now, what's an instruction? Well, you see these commands right here? Pin mode 10 output, pin mode 12 output. Those are all instructions. So right here is one instruction. This is a second instruction, and you keep going. So one thing that I may not have mentioned in the past, right? So you remember we have void setup here, and then we have void loop here, okay? So whenever you see void and then something like that, it's kind of a keyword, this void right here. I won't go into why it says void right now. That'll be for another lesson. But when you see void and then a word like this, it's a hint that you have a function coming up. Okay, so this is the void setup function. All right, and then you have the curly braces here, one here, one here. Then everything that is inside, in between those two curly braces, are the instructions of that function. So based on that, how many instructions are in the setup function? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's look at the loop function. The loop function is right here. You see void, and then you see loop, and then you see the curly braces. How many instructions are in the loop function? We also have 4. Cool. So the great thing about functions is that you are able to do complex stuff really easily. All right. And so I'll make an example. I'll do an example here, and then you'll see why functions make your life easier. All right, so let's first look and see. Let's try to make our motor move again. Let's do motor A, which is, I'm looking at my top screen, this one right here, actually. Motor A is this one. I'm going to put it over here. I feel like I just like that better. All right, so this is my motor A, where my fingers tapping. And let's turn motor A on. I'm going to comment out the motor B code for now. Okay, turn motor. So to do that, remember, oh, this is not the right area. This is a setup. Let me undo that. I want to go to the loop. Okay. So motor A is pins 8 and 11. So that is down here. And then, yeah, let me comment out the motor B stuff. Okay, so motor A, if I make one high and one low, it's gonna move, right? Now does it go forward, go backwards? I'm actually not sure. I'm just gonna upload this, and then we will adjust from there. Okay, motor A, right here. Okay, it's moving, and it is actually moving backwards. Okay, so let me turn it back off. Boom. Okay. So I think this is what I had before, right? So this is backwards. So what if I do this? Let's make a function that has the list of instructions for moving backwards. So I'm going to go void my function, and then my curly braces. Now what's up with this? So after the function, you always have to put these parentheses. Okay. Again, today I want to get into why the parentheses, how come there's nothing in the parentheses. Kind of like the void thing, we'll go over that another day. But for now, whenever we make a function, it's just say my function and then these two parentheses. That's how the computer is going to know, okay, I got a function coming up. Okay, and then we put our curly braces. Now, what are the commands or the instructions for my function? Well, we wanted to make the motor A go backwards, right? Which is these two instructions. So I'm going to just like cut that and then paste that in there. Okay. All right, that's cool. So then now, if I do my function, I can just do it like this. So I can do a function call. It's called function call. So I'm going to say my function and then put these two parentheses. And when I do that, what's going to happen is going to say, the computer's going to say, well, what is my function? I don't know what my function is. Well, it's going to look into all the code and look for void my function. So the computer does that. It looks for void my function. And once it sees that, it says, oh, my function is these two instructions. And then it's actually going to do these two instructions. All right. But the key is, see, you don't have to write these two instructions. You don't have to write it here on line 32. All you have to do is say my function. Okay. Well, let's make sure this works, and then you'll see. Still, you might be thinking, well, it's not making my life that much easier, but you'll see. So we'll just keep following along. Okay. Let's first make sure this works. Okay. So my function is working. See, whenever I run that code now, it's moving backwards. Because it's going to, it sees my function, it says, what is my function? And it finds void my function, and then does these two things. Okay. Now, let's do a couple improvements. I think let's see what happens. Okay, I'm just going to let that thing go and try to talk over this thing. All right. So the first thing, or maybe I'll do this. Unplug. The first thing that I would want to say is when we make functions, we want to make the name of the function really helpful. So right now, I just call it my function. It's not very descriptive. Like when I tell you, oh, look at my function, it doesn't really tell you right away what it does. It's just, I guess it's a function, right? So instead, let's name our function A motor backward, right? It's very, very descriptive, right? Because it's saying I'm moving a motor, and and I don't really like the name of that. I'm gonna go motor A backward. I kind of like that. So then if I have that, then what I can do is copy this, and then instead of my function, it's gotta be, because this always has to match that. So now it says motor A backwards, so it's not very confusing, right? I'm like, okay, if I say motor A backwards, it's gonna move motor A backwards. All right, and let's just make sure this works. Oh, yeah, you gotta plug in, right? All right, so this is still the old code. So let's first do an upload and make sure it still works. Okay, motor A is still moving backwards. Cool, cool. So now, without like doing all the tests, because I kind of know how this thing is working now, I'm gonna make one that says void motor A forward. Yeah. Oh, that's not the right brace. It's curly brace. Okay. Motor A forward, and then what are the instructions to make it go forward? Well, you got to take these two. And remember, with the DC motor driver, all you have to do, if you want to flip it, then you just flip these two, the control signals. So there should be 8 low and 11 high. Okay? So now, if I say motor A forward, it should work. Let's make sure. My motor, well, I should plug it in as always. All right, and now it goes like this. So now it's going forward. Okay, cool. So we have two functions that work. Now we can do something else. What if we wanted to do this? What if we want our motor to go forward for a second, then backward for a second, forward for a second, backward for a second? Check it out. You just do this now. So motor A forward, then I say delay 1000 so that it just lets it go forward for 1000. So the code just chills there for 1000 as the motor's going forward. And then after it chills for 1000 milliseconds, let's go motor A backward. And then I want to chill and do that for a second too. And then I'm in a loop right now, so what's going to happen is after that it's going to go back to motor A forward. So it's going to should go forward for a second, backwards for a second, forward for a second, backward for a second. Okay? And if you notice, the code looks really, really clean, right? I have just 4 lines right here. I say forward, delay, backward, delay. That's it. I don't have to write all these digital writes and stuff, because these digital writes are inside of the motor A forward and motor A backward subroutines or functions. Subroutines or functions is the same thing. Okay, let me upload, just make sure that this guy works. And of course, I always forget to plug this guy in. Okay, forward and backwards. Let's see. There you go. All right, now I don't really like the way it's going right now, because what's happening is that it's like really rough. Like imagine you're driving a car, right? And you're going forward, and then without even stopping, you go right away reverse, forward, reverse, without stopping in between. That's really gonna mess up your car. Actually, I think some of the the newer cars, right, it doesn't allow you to do that, because it would really, really mess up your car. It's really rough on the gears and on yourself too. It's like you need to stop first and then back up, right? So let's do that. So to do that, let's create a stop function. Void motor A stop. All right. And then what are the stop instructions? Well, it's our 2 digital writes, and you set them both high or both low. All right. So we have that. So then now what I can do is say move motor A forward, delay a second. Then I'm going to do motor A stop, and then I want to also delay a second. Okay. So I'm going to move forward, wait a second, stop, and then wait a second. So it's actually going to be like stop, no motion for a whole second. And then line 47 is going to move backward for a second. And then I'm going to stop. And then I'm going to chill out for a second again. Okay, so now it's going to go forward for a second, stop for a second, backwards for a second, stop for a second, hopefully. So let's try this out. And now I have 3 functions now, right? It's forward, stop, and backward. Connect. Check it out. It's working. It is working quite well. Okay. And let's go ahead and stop this. So that's today's lesson on functions. So it's just a quick idea here. So the thing that I want you to really notice is look how clean the code is. First off, you only have these amount of lines, right? Was this 8 lines or so? 8 lines, right? If you didn't have the functions, you would have a lot more lines, right? Because, and let's actually calculate that out, each one of these function calls represents how many lines? I think it's 2. Like motor A forward is 2 lines, backwards 2 lines, stop 2 lines, okay? So each one of these is actually 2 lines of code, but you don't have to write it because it's a function. So that means instead of 8, if you didn't have the functions, you would have 2 lines here, 3 plus another 2, so it's 5, 6, 8, 9, 11, 12. So you would have 12 lines of code without the functions, but look, you only have 8 lines of code now. So number one, the reasons that functions are great is that it reduces the number of lines of code, saves you work. Another reason is that it makes your code super readable. And what I mean by that is that if someone didn't know anything about how your code works, they can just look at this. Like reading line 42 to 50, they might be able to guess what this code's supposed to do, because look, it says motor A forward, and you're like, well, what could that be? Well, maybe it moves motor A forward. You see that? And then line 44, motor A stop. Well, what could that do? Maybe it makes motor A stop. All right. So because you're able to create your own names to make them descriptive, to help people read your code, that's another reason why functions are great. Okay. So as our code gets more and more complicated, for sure you're going to want to use this function thing. So it reduces the amount of lines of code, so you don't have that many lines, and then also it makes your code that much more readable. Okay, so let's look at the challenges, and this is what I want you to do, taking what you've learned right here. So number one, I always like to go with the easy ones, right? To just do exactly what I did, which was create motor A forward function. 2 is create motor A backward function. Create motor A stop function. And then after you do that, move motor A forward 1 second, stop 1 second, backward 1 second, stop 1 second. Okay, that's exactly what we did here, and this is the code right here, right? Okay, and then now let's bring in some of the other things that you should be able to do. Number 5 is do the same thing, or I'll say do 1 through 4, the first 1 through 4, but with motor B. All right, so same thing that we had with B. Now after you do that, number 6, create move car forward function, and I'll just write them all. Car forward, backward, stop. Okay. So then after you have that, you will have a set of functions to move both wheels at the same time. So I want you to move forward, move backwards, and then move stop, but using the function. And then after you do that, let's see, I'll give you this challenge. Okay, so after you have that, I'm gonna pull up my whiteboard here, I think. Let's see if this will work. I'm gonna pull up my whiteboard. I'm gonna draw out the challenge I would like you to try. Okay, so let's see here. Just waiting for my whiteboard to come alive. Okay, I think we're there. All right, so this is the button stuff. Let's get a new board here. All right, so I want to do this. All right, so we're gonna start here. You're gonna start here, okay? And this is gonna be distance 0, all right? I want you to write a program, okay? And once you press the button, so the button stuff, that's from the previous video, so if you need a refresher, you can look at the previous video. How do you wire and program the button? But the way it's going to work is I want you to press the button, and once you press it, I want you to write a program using functions, all functions, okay? Where it starts at 0 and it goes here, and I want it to go 24 inches, okay? So you're gonna need like a ruler, okay? And then it goes backwards to 12 inches, okay? And then it goes forward to, let's say, 20 inches. Okay? So there's 3, maybe 4 phases here, right? So it starts at 0, and then when you press the button, it goes to 24 forward, and then it goes backwards to 12 inches, and then it goes to 20 inches, goes forward again to 20 inches. Okay? And what I also want to do is every time where you go to the red circle, right? So at 0, 24, 12, I want you to wait there for 1 second wait at each stop. Okay? So when you press the button, since you're at stop number 1, you would stay there for 1 second and then move to 24 inches, then stay there for one second, and then go to 12 inches, stay there for a second, and then go to 20 inches and stay there for a second. So in order to do this challenge, you might need to put some tape out, measure it out first, right? 0, 24, 12, and 20, okay, to get it just right. And then the key here is I want you to use all functions. So I want you to think about, well, what functions do I need in order to do this? Okay, so every command that you give to the robot motors, make sure that it's using this new function thing that we learned about. All right, that's all we have for today. Have fun with that. I look forward to seeing how you guys do. Talk to you soon. Bye.